Smack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 167 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom. You've made popcorn with half the city, haggis.
Hey, I'm bursting with fruit flavor.
Second, writer, actor, and director, Kyle. I'm a non-practicing virgin, fine.
You can put that on my video dating profile. It seems like these days kids need things, money, support, a place to live. But Winona Ryder needs a bra.
Third, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel. My name is Dick, and you know you can touch me, Rowald.
Yes, that my youth in a nutshell.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew. He's the reason Cliff's Notes were invented, Zumwalt.
Come to where the flavor is. Come to Debbie Country.
That was on my list of possible quotes.
There's a lot.
There's
a lot in these movies.
It's the hunky quotes. Guy that's like, I'm tender, but women don't really know because how could you when you look like this?
I had money on Sugar Booger, to be honest with you.
Sugar Booger? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, sexy Seattle singles and Gen X grads, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two tales of 20-somethings facing their futures, vying for victory. In the first quarter, from 1992, written and directed by Cameron Crowe, starring Kira Sedgwick, Campbell Scott, and Bridget Fonda. Single! In the second corner, from 1994, written by Helen Childress, directed by Ben Stiller, starring Janine Garofalo, Ethan Hawke, and Winona Ryder. Reality Bites. Are there good, grungy times in store for singles? Or will Reality Bites reap the angsty award?
All right, two 90s rom-coms, coming of age. Like, I've always had a hard time kind of classifying both of these films, but man, watching them again, I haven't watched them in at least 20 years. It was kind of giving me flashbacks to the late 90s for me anyway.
Yeah.
Let's see what you guys think. Let's poke the monkey. Start out with writing.
So I think these two movies are kind of go in a collection of about maybe 20 other movies that are, I would say, are generationally kind of defined Gen X. I mean, I'd throw this in there with movies like Ferris Bueller and Breakfast Club and Goonies and Fight Club. I think that Matrix you could probably throw in there. But movies that kind of gave our generation like an identity and some things to latch onto and for us to rally around. The one thing I want to do before we kind of get into is I want to do just kind of a quick timeline so that because I think it's important to understand like the grunge movement in the early 90s, like how these movies fit into that. So Singles start shooting in March, and from March to May in 91. Cameron Crowe writes it obviously way before that, but they filmed from March to May in 91. And then Nirvana releases Nevermind in September of 91. So I mean, almost a year before Nirvana releases their album, Cameron Crowe writes this, which is incredible because it really feels like the movie was a response to the grunge movement, and it's not. It's actually, this was predated the grunge movement, and it's kind of amazing. Pearl Jam's album came out a month before Nevermind, so it's really impressive that Cameron Crowe was able to do this. And then Singles is released on New Year's Day 92, and right after that Nirvana hits #1 and things take off from there. Singles doesn't come out until 1994, and that movie does feel more like a response to the grunge movement. It's almost like they saw Singles and like, we can do it better. And I also really feel like watching Singles, I got this real sense like there was the TV show Friends came out of it too. There's a lot of stuff in it that really felt like the Friends TV show, but then they like neutered it and made all the people in it unfunny, and then they made the TV show Friends. So I think both stories do a really good job of kind of encapsulating a lot of the anxiety and issues that people that were in their young 20s at that time were going through. The dialogue in both the movies is real snappy. I think it's a little bit more snappy in Reality Bites, which is kind of a trademark of Ben Stiller anyway. I know it was written by Helen Childress, but his movies tend to seem to have the back and forth kind of I don't know, just kind of that faster, witty banner. Whereas Singles was a little bit more observational. And I think both of them kind of have their strengths, but I kind of go back to that whole ability of Cameron Crowe to just see that movement coming. And it's really hard to explain to people what that was like, that we were kind of in Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, Van Halen mode, and then this wave of new music and a fashion sense that kind of relied on being comfortable, which I think was something I know that was one of my favorite parts about it. Was like, I just wear flannels and jeans, cool, I can do that. So I think the other thing I want to touch on real quick, story-wise, Singles has more of that different groups of people. It's about more people than Reality Bites is, and the focus in Singles is a little bit softer in that, Kyra Sedgwick and Scott Campbell are kind of the center couple, but it really does revolve around a little bit bigger group, whereas Reality Bites is more about a love triangle and then their kind of peripheral friends and stuff that's happening to them. And I think movies like Singles it's been redone a lot, and a lot of times it's not very good because it's really hard to care about all the characters. But for some reason, the people in Singles, I find them to be very likable. In Reality Bites, the interesting thing is you kind of go back and forth. You're like, why wouldn't she wind up with Ben Stiller? He's a really nice guy. He's really sensitive. He's successful. Why would she not wind up with him? And it's, you kind of almost ping pong you back and forth between, you know, Ben Stiller's character and Ethan Hawke's character, which I think is a sign of really good writing as well, is that you can kind of see her going either way. And you feel very strongly throughout the movie about which one you think she should wind up with. So, which is kind of how I feel about voting in this category between these two.
Yeah, I felt like Singles was like a series of almost at times disjointed vignettes. There were weird periods of time that passed that we didn't really get a feeling for. And it was like these little snippets, these little vignettes of their lives and their interactions. Whereas I felt like Reality Bites had a little bit more of a through line. There was kind of a you know, a story that went through the whole movie. You know, that we wanted to see these characters knew each other for forever, you know. Well, you know, I guess to them it probably felt like forever. To an old fart like me, it's not that long, but you know, they knew each other from when they were kids and after they graduated and that kind of thing. And I felt like there was a little bit more of a kind of a complete story there. And I felt like personally, I felt like the dialogue in Singles was not quite as compelling. There were certain moments in Reality Bites that I really enjoyed the dialogue, and I felt like I was getting a sense of the character's inner, you know, story from some of the dialogue. I don't know. I mean, I think there are certain other things in these movies other than the writing that we'll get into later that really define them. But for me, I felt like it was almost disconnected vignettes in Singles and a little bit more of a full story in Reality Bites.
Yeah, Reality Bites is a much more linear story. Time and place move around a little more freely in Singles, which, you know, can be good or bad depending on how it's executed. I do agree with Tom. The dialogue is a bit snappier in places. In Reality Bites, I think Ben Stiller, maybe as the director, is like, hey, I want all the good slams, like the good, like back in your face, philosophy douche, you know, kind of arguments. And that was really good. I thought, you know, like, it's so of a time, and I didn't experience this period of time the way the other members of this podcast are, because I'm, you know, young and vibrant and fresh, and they are old, stale boomers.
Oh,
or something
brother,
like
this guy stinks!
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff missed me. But
Did you just call me a fucking boomer? Seriously?
No, I wasn't talking about you.
You fucking shit.
Wow, that's wow, grumbling under your breath at someone younger than you. What kind of generation behavior is that?
There goes the podcast.
Anyways,
Call me boomer again.
Oh, are you gonna sit and listen to your Mudhoney records with your earphones on? Yeah, grunge missed me. I always was comfortable. I wore sweatpants to school till I was in 7th grade. So that just made me a nerd. I didn't have anything to do with grunge. But yeah, Singles was a story strangely told, I thought. It had some hyper focus on some things, and maybe we'll get into directing. I'm not sure what the hyper focusing on garage door openers was about. That's a thing maybe you old folks will have to explain to me. Now, if she was obsessed with a see-through pager, now that's hitting me right in the generation. Like, you know, like, and if she was getting 911s from a girlfriend, and she was putting Puff Daddy on the, you know, the voice recording before they left their message. Now that's my wheelhouse. That was my stuff right there, going to Sam Goody. But yeah, I mean, Singles is sort of a vignette. They're both really coming of age, angsty, early 20s movies, which I think is sort of universal to everyone's period of time in their life. For most people, that's when you're cut free from school and sort of adrift in the world and trying to find your place. I remember feeling very confused the first Monday when I didn't have school, and I realized that if I wanted to, I would never have to go to school again. It was such a strange feeling of like freedom, but also lack of structure. And, I think these movies do a pretty good job of capturing that sort of universal feeling of that and confusion about who you are and what you want to be, what you want your life to be, your legacy to be. And also just dealing with the friction of the world and other people and their wants and needs and desires. But it's also very neurotic, which, may not be typical for everyone. It's also very heightened for the movies. I think some of the two camera interstitial, like fourth wall breaking exposition dumps were kind of clunky and not well pulled off in Singles. Some of the dialogue given to Ethan Hawke's character and Janine Garofalo's character, and I mean, Steve Zahn is sort of an afterthought in the story of Reality Bites, but just kind of in there to shoehorn a specific point of view or something some people were dealing with at that time in the 90s. But I don't know. I mean, they're both okay. They capture that existential crisis I think a lot of people go through in their early 20s, but they're so of a time and generation and so specific to a place that I feel it makes them less relatable the further you get removed from that time period.
Well, Janine Garofalo can call me an asshole, and I'd still listen and watch anything she does and says. So I'm just going to start with that. So I don't know if that's just good writing or if it's just Janine Garofalo. And maybe we talk about acting, because we probably will. Tom, you stole my get out of my head, because while I was watching these again, the first thing I thought of was Reality Bites is the non-comedy version of Friends, and Singles is the show after Friends, after everybody moves out. Like, it completely felt like that while I'm watching them. And of course, it's, I haven't seen these in years, and yes, it was a generational thing. You watched them and you're like, well, this was a thing. These were your angst energy that you found in your early 20s to be like, yeah, let's do this. And it really brought a lot of that nostalgia back. The thing, minus all the other stuff, I'm going to say, Kyle, I agree that Singles has the weird fourth wall break that to this day I still don't understand. It feels very odd, and it's not consistent throughout the movie. And so it's weird, like it was an afterthought. And in Reality Bites, they at least, she's recording a documentary, and that's how they kind of get away with it a little bit. But the rest of it is in Singles is just really kind of odd. Yeah, I mean, these are definitely, it was written as a generational. It is very much generational. I think some of the themes, though, and some of the ideas, minus, having excited because you work at the Gap, but a lot of the ideas and the themes are still relatable and still repeat, because even when you are a 2000 baby or a 2010 baby or a 2020 baby, when you hit your 20s, it's a weird stage in your life. It's a weird moment, whether you go to college or you don't go to college. You're in this weird stage. And personally, I don't ever want to relive my 20s. and it's because you're in this clunky, I'm trying to figure out the world at the same time that I'm figuring out me. And it's just, you just don't ever really quite get in the groove, and you're all over the place. And I think the writing in both of these movies shows that. I think Reality Bites shows it a little bit better to get that point across. But there is, Kyle, you mentioned not really sure the connection, but there's even the line where she goes into her dad's store and he's like, what kids today don't have is a work ethic. And I'm like, how relatable is that? Because that's the thing they're saying about the younger generation now, and they'll say again about the next generation. So I think they've done a good job writing a story that even though it's a different time and it has different styles and different language, a lot of the fundamentals of finding yourself and discovering the world while you try to figure out how you fit, I think still exist and always will for those people in that area of their life when they're being exposed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just real quick, Andrew, based on what you said, I wanted to, I'm going to loop this into True Detective, which I love to do when I can.
Okay.
There's a scene where Marty is up at the lake house with his wife's family, and the dad is basically complaining about the youth of today. And he stops and says, you know, old men have been complaining about youth since the beginning of time, and old men die and the world keeps spinning. And it's a thing in like every era of movies.
Yes.
Every generation thinks the next generation is lazier
and sucks
and weaker and not as good as them. Yeah, that is a universal thing that still happens today.
Yep. 100%.
All right. Let's put it to a vote, gentlemen.
A what? A float? We're making a float now? Kyle, you're on flowers.
I am going to go with... I think I'll go with Reality Bites on this one.
All right. Gabe?
Reality Bites.
All right. Kyle?
Now, if I vote for Singles, does Danny Boyle have to write me the check?
I have a plan.
Oh, okay. I'm going to go with Reality Bites.
Right. And Andrew?
I'm also going to go with Reality Bites.
Oh, wow. Okay. Singles was based on a script that Cameron Crowe originally wrote in 1984, which took place in Phoenix, Arizona, after Andrew Wood, the lead singer of Seattle band Malfunction and Mother Love Bone, died of a drug overdose in 1990. Crowe noticed the music community in Seattle coming together. He rewrote the script with the incident in mind. In 1991, producer Michael Schamberg had an idea to make a movie about people in their 20s. He had read a screenplay, Blue Bayou, written by Helen Childress, on speculation in 1990. He liked it and met with her, where she proceeded to tell him about her life and friends and their struggle to find work during a recession in the United States at the time. She wrote and rewrote the script for 3 years, generating 70 different drafts. Childress decided to use her friends, their personalities, and experiences as the basis for her movie. 70 different drafts. It's insane to me.
Yeah. Wow. I'm curious to know what how, maybe not bad is the right word, but the differences in draft one.
Oh, yes.
Like how much it progressed in 70 drafts.
Well, and then she and Stiller wrote and rewrote a few more things after he was brought on.
Holy
so,
cow.
Yeah, that was even more trivia that I had read about it.
And is she getting paid that whole time?
I mean, I don't know. It didn't say.
So like,
I'd write 70 drafts if I was getting paid for it.
Yeah, is that like 100? It's like a lawyer, $100 in 15 minutes.
It was just a work of love.
Yeah.
And then
if I'm doing it in my free time, I don't know. That seems a little insane.
She's on retainer. She's on retainer, Gabe.
Oh man, I got to write 10 pages this week. Okay, I'll revisit this.
It must have worn her out too, because she's hardly written anything since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carpal tunnel.
Recovered.
All right. Let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
Acting. Yeah. So I was not too impressed with the acting in Singles. I'd seen Singles before, when I was younger, and I think I identified with it in some way. And unlike Kyle, I was in that generation where I really identified with grunge music. I loved grunge music, and there was a part of it where it was in that scene that I kind of identified with. But watching it again, I felt like the acting, and it's hard, it's really hard to separate these things out. I mean, we have these categories, but sometimes they overlap, and it's hard to really figure out where, how to pull them apart. But I was not very happy with the acting in Singles. I felt like it was kind of flat. I was not a big fan of Campbell Scott's performance as Steve. I just didn't really find him very compelling, and almost kind of creepy at times. And so it didn't make me really into the whole love story thing of it. And yeah, I just felt like a lot of it was kind of flat. I guess Matt Dillon was okay. I mean, I felt like he was kind of just Matt Dillon with long hair. I don't know. I just didn't really get into the performances in Singles. Whereas with Reality Bites, I thought the performances were better. I'm not sure they were great, but I felt the performances were more believable, more realistic. I really like Ethan Hawke. Actually, I find him compelling. I really like him as an actor. I have to disagree with Andrew, though, to a certain degree with Janine Garofalo. I generally can't stand her, but I did find her tolerable in this. I thought this was for me, it was one of the more tolerable performances by her. Ben Stiller is always kind of interesting, although I don't think his character or his dialogue was very good in this particular one. But I always like seeing Ben Stiller. Steve Zahn, I really love Steve Zahn. He's done some really great performances to me. I think he was underutilized in this film. So yeah, I just felt, generally speaking, that Singles was a little bit flat, not very interesting, and that Reality Bites was a little more compelling and more realistic.
I gotta go the other way. I thought the acting in Singles was better. I just kind of felt a little bit more natural to me. I don't know. So I'm a big fan of the Ben Stiller show. It was on for like one season, and it had Andy Dick and Janine Garofalo and Ben Stiller, and it was a sketch comedy show that Ben Stiller produced around the same time. And I feel like Reality Bites feels like the Ben Stiller show, the movie, and so it's really hard for me to break away from that. And I feel like a lot of the stuff in Singles, kind of like Seattle itself, is kind of built around those small people that you just kind of know, and there's so many cameos in it. It's crazy. And that Reality Bites has a lot of cameos too, but I think the Singles ones and the work with the guy, Chris Cornell and the guys from Pearl Jam, are just absolutely hilarious. I love watching it, and knowing that this is before they started to hit their stride, and and that the movie is 32, 33 years old, and I mean they're still selling out arenas. It's absolutely incredible to me. But to the acting, I don't know. I thought I preferred the stuff in Singles just because it just felt a little bit more natural and less. I didn't feel like I couldn't sense the director behind the camera in Singles as much as I could. Like I could feel Ben Stiller watching over the scenes in Reality Bites.
Yeah, I would. I mean, Singles. Eric Stoltz is in Singles. I mean, that's crazy right off the bat. But I mean, the amount of people that I don't know weren't as big as they are now, less recognizable. I think earlier we had even talked about for Singles. No, it's not in Singles. It's in Reality. No, it is in Singles. Oh my gosh, we just talked about in our chat.
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti, thank you. Randomly is there for like 5 seconds, and is now, I mean, a fantastic actor. And he was in this diner for 5 seconds making out with some chick that was like, wow, what's wrong? And it's just, it's amazing to see a lot of that and what they've done since then and come out of that. That doesn't necessarily mean that what they did in this movie was perfect or anything. I had a heart, like, there are people, I think Bridget Fonda was fantastic in Singles. Has a real, I don't know, there's a real movement and flow to her. Very, maybe that naturalness that Tom had alluded to, just very simple, and it just works really, really well. There's some really nice comedy. Matt Dillon, I've never really, I don't know. But then you go
he had all the best lines, though.
He did have all the best lines, but he's just kind of like, like, it just felt like, yeah, that's Matt Dillon. And Winona Ryder, I mean, she does a fantastic job being kind of this off-putting back and forth in that weird stage for the most part, and she does it well. I guess going back and looking at it now, it's one of those things where it feels like that's what she always did. She always played that role, and maybe it's just because she's good at it. But just, she delivered nice performance. Ethan Hawke, I think, did a perfect job next to Winona Ryder. I thought they were a really nice kind of pushback between the two of them, and they would go from hating each other to loving each other back to hating each other where they really loved each other, kind of thing. And I think they played that really well. I think you could see and feel that that chemistry, but not really, I don't know, friction maybe is a better way. Steve Zahn, gotta love the guy, and I'll say it probably every round, but Janine Garofalo. She doesn't have to act good.
So Tom, let me double up on your love for the Ben Stiller show. It's fantastic, like a lost gem.
It is.
I have it on. I either have or had it on DVD. I don't think you can even get it anymore. I'd have to look through my old stash, but it was way ahead of its time and really funny. I don't particularly like most of the performances in either of these movies. I have never been a fan of any Dylan actor that has graced the screen. I mean, I think one of the twins in Big Daddy was like Dylan Sprouse or something. So not first name Dylans, like last names. I don't like Matt Dillon. I don't like Kevin Dillon. I don't like whatever. They're kind of like the Baldwins to me, where I don't like most of them.
What about Marshall Dillon?
That sounds like a World War II general. But speaking of names, I would like to point out one of my things I didn't get to mention in writing, and that is the band Citizen Dick in the phone book would be Richard Citizen. So I do like that. I just like, rolling the names around, or Dick Citizen. That's kind of funny. I think when you look at these movies, you see a combination of things. You see okay actors giving okay or bad performances. You see really good actors giving early good performances, and you see some actors who will grow to become really much better actors. And I think they fall into the categories of Kira Sedgwick and Campbell Soup, or whatever his name is. I don't think they're very good nor believable. I don't like them very much in Singles. I think Bridget Fonda is kind of airy and effortless, but it's hard to believe someone as beautiful as her just wants to be with someone who says, God bless you. I would say God bless you all the time in an elevator. If you got to raise your standards. It's gross. And then I think on the flip side, you see Winona Ryder, who I think proved to me, I have never, I don't want to say I'm a big fan, but I've just not consumed a lot of Winona Ryder content, I guess. But watching her in Beetlejuice earlier this year, realized how good she was at so young, and she is really good in Reality Bites. And so is Ethan Hawke, but I think he has some hits and misses, and he would grow into become like a phenomenal actor. And Ben Stiller too, who you can see he seems a little young and raw, and he's trying very hard, but then he hones his craft, and his timing becomes so good, and he grows into a phenomenal actor as well. So it's interesting to see, some of these people that feel like they maybe never quite reached the higher echelons of acting, and then people who grew to become great actors, and people like Winona Ryder and Ethan Hawke, who were great 30 years ago and are still great today. So it's interesting, but yeah, it's hard for me to really recommend a lot of the acting in these movies.
I think, yeah, I mean, you mentioned Winona Ryder, and I think she's a bright point in Reality Bites. I had seen a lot of Winona Ryder leading up to this, and she is really great in everything. She was great in Beetlejuice and Heathers. There's just she has just a lot of really great roles. And then she's continued that on. I think she's very much at the center of Stranger Things, and the heart of the movie. Even though the movie's about the kids, that she brings a lot of weight to it, and it's just fun to see her still going.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, Ben Stiller, he's obviously, we'll talk a little bit about in directing, but it is definitely not an easy thing to act and direct at the same time. And it's, seeing Ben Stiller, I want to say he looks young, but he kind of looks the same that he does now, just more gray hair. Like there's not a lot of difference, and he's aged really well, but he still has the same mannerisms and the same things that go on with Ben Stiller. And it's good to see that hasn't changed, that he is truly that person, and maybe that's just his acting persona, but he is kind of that. I mean, it's Ben Stiller. Like it's just weird. Again, I just think it's a matter of watching these movies from such years ago to see these actors, and you're like, wow, that's so and so. Oh my gosh, and that person's it's just crazy. Poor Tom Waits.
All right. You guys have anything else to add for the acting?
Eric Stoltz was going to be in Back to the Future. Instead, he's a mime.
He was a mime.
Who smoked without a cigarette? Who smoked without a cigarette? I was like, what?
I was surprised when you used Eric Stoltz as an example of a star-studded cast. I'm like, fucking, he's not that hard to get. Like, he's probably on Cameo at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, it's Eric Stoltz. I mean,
I know, but he's a veritable who's that of actors.
I just know him because he was going to be Marty, and that's how I'm.
Well, they shot part of the movie with him, and then
like,
nope, we don't like him.
He's not funny. He's not funny. But like Jeremy Piven, he's fantastic as that cashier. Like that whole scene. Oh my god, it's hilarious. And the singing
his lines were improvised, by the way.
Weird.
Really?
Nah.
Yeah.
Surprised.
Do you think this is how Entourage got started? Jeremy Piven was on that set. Hold on, Matt Dillon's not in that movie. Never mind, forget it. And I didn't see the guy who played Turtle anywhere, so.
Yeah. Close.
Yeah, Victor Garber's in there, and all the band guys, and like you said, Giamatti.
Yeah.
Christopher Masterson from Malcolm in the Middle, the older brother from Malcolm in the Middle. He's one of the sperm kids on the playground.
And Bill
John
Pullman
Mahoney is
Bill Pullman. Bill Pullman.
Him not telling us that it's our Independence Day.
Yeah.
Tom Skerritt as the mayor, just randomly being the mayor.
I totally get why Campbell Scott was all nervous during that meeting. I'll be like, shit, you're Tom Skerritt.
By the way,
you're fucking Jester.
Tom Skerritt was, I don't know if he's still alive. I don't want to click on the link, but was a longtime Seattle resident.
Really?
So, yeah.
And I don't know what you want to talk about. And we'll talk later about the cities themselves, but acting thing, Kira Sedgwick, when Debbie goes in for her, she holds up a picture of Edie Sedgwick as one of the examples she wants to do. That's Kira Sedgwick's cousin, and she was a pinup girl model.
Well, and Renee Zellweger is the chick on the porch at the very beginning.
Yep.
Oh,
Like-
and
Yeah.
Joe Don Baker.
Yeah.
Did we bring
Joe
up?
Don-
Tom
Yeah,
Baker?
like again, that's what I'm saying. Like this, it's like a blender of people.
Right?
That's what's going on our Cinemax shirts. Did we mention Joe Don Baker?
Let's contact Raygun. We can get it made.
The Australian breakdancer? She doesn't have anything going on anymore.
Oh my God, David
All right.
Perner from Soul Asylum's in there,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
and Keith David was in. Is looking exact. Keith David hasn't changed at all.
Nope.
No, Keith David's awesome, by the way.
Like, don't crack. That's what they say.
And I'll mention Andy Dick because his scene is actually really
No. Are we supposed to talk about Andy Dick anymore?
No,
Yeah,
I
I
just
thought that-
mentioned
I
he's
don't
in the
know,
movie.
you
And
got
his scene was
Puff
funny.
Daddy.
We're gonna get canceled.
Oh, hold on. In my defense,
Whoa.
nobody knew Puff Daddy was bad when I was putting him on my pager. This is way before the baby oil.
No one knew that Andy Dick was bad.
Oh, I think people knew.
I think we've known for a long time.
Yeah, I think the world.
I was trying to give some edge. I'm sorry. All right.
Oh, hey, Tom Skerritt is alive,
Yeah,
and he's
Yeah.
91.
he's 91.
Was he,
Wow.
Thanks,
was he in
Chad.
Top Gun? I thought he
Thank
was
you,
in Top
Chad.
Gun 2.
He was
wasn't
in. Was he?
In
I thought he
Maverick.
was in Top Gun 2. Or was that
Electric-
Michael Ironside? No,
Electric
Michael
Boogaloo?
Ironside wasn't in it.
No,
No.
you're thinking
Jeez.
of Tom Cruise.
I think
I'm gonna look it up now, dicks.
Tom Skerritt, also the greatest natural name for a 1960s Batman villain.
It's true.
Yeah,
Did we
he was
mention
not
Joe
in
Don Baker yet?
We did mention Joe Don Baker.
All right, good. I just want to make sure that got in.
We are single-handedly driving the algorithm for Joe Don Baker at this point.
And with the mention of Joe Don Baker, this round comes to an end.
An old server in Google's warehouse kicks to life.
Alarm bells start to
Yeah.
ring because it's taking the grid.
My
down.
God, that's Joe Don Baker.
All right, let's put it to a vote. Gabe.
I have to go with Reality Bites.
All right. Kyle.
Reality Bites.
Andrew.
Nothing really. I wish I could abstain and we could have a middle, but I guess Reality Bites. I'll give it to Janine. Hey.
Okay, everyone, you're going to be able to hear Danny Boyle writing the check. The pen is touching the paper right about.
What? Why do
Tom.
I vote? Why do I vote? Well, if you're just going to do that, why would I bother voting?
Tom.
Look,
Did I telegraph my pick
it's-
during this round?
it's hovering.
Yes, you did.
Well, look, I didn't know no one else was going to vote for singles, but I'm voting for singles.
I'll ruin it later.
Not because Danny Boyle is paying me to protect his perfect score, but
Oh,
Because I
don't
think acting is-
don't cash
the
that till
singles is better.
Monday, bruv.
I'm gonna have to
He's
move
got
some
28
things.
years later money. coming.
I'm gonna have to move some things around. You know, a couple of charities are gonna take a hit,
What?
but it'll be
What are you
fine.
talking? Danny Boyle is doing just fine. It's fine. It's fine, Danny.
Bruv. He said bruv.
He's fine. Oh, for
Before
crying out loud.
filming began on Reality Bites, Janine Garofalo was fired from the production because director Ben Stiller did not like her attitude during rehearsal. Garofalo was rehired after Winona Ryder stepped in on her behalf. Garofalo stated later that she has a really poor work ethic and hates to rehearse. Director
Great for an
Cameron
actor.
Director Cameron Crowe originally envisioned singer Chris Cornell in the role of Cliff Pontier. Cornell turned down the role because of the filming schedule to focus solely on his band Soundgarden. Crowe still gave him a wordless cameo and asked Soundgarden to perform their song Birth Ritual in one of the scenes.
He's in
And
that scene where the car blows up.
by the way, my favorite Chris Cornell song is still the Casino Royale song.
It's a
Oh,
great
it's
song.
so good.
Yeah.
All right. Third round, directing.
Directing. Was there any? Okay, let's start with singles. Film has a language. There's an art to it. There's a way you convey ideas. There's a way you set tone. There's a way you get information across. And I think one of the cardinal sins is the inexplicable, unexplained, multiple person fourth wall break exposition dump. And also breaking your movie into chapters, which I'm going to go against later on, but we'll get there. It is very, I think it was a very poorly executed gimmick in singles. It reminds you you're watching a movie, which I think is one of the cardinal sins of being a movie, unless it plays into the narrative in a greater way, which I don't think it does in singles. I think it's a bad gimmick and it's badly performed. And it breaks up a lot of the tension in your investment in the people. I think also like characters are given the direction to be very one note most of the time. They focus on a very narrow band of things, other than Campbell Scott, who sort of goes from up to down and back. A little bit of Keira Sedgwick too, but mostly there's not a lot of movement and there's not a lot conveyed well there. I think, a lot of the shots are pretty static, and other than the concert footage, it's not super interesting. Also, I don't believe any of these people are into grunge music. Sorry, I don't believe Keira Sedgwick is going to that show. I just don't believe she's watching Alice in Chains. I don't think she is. But I don't know. And Reality Bites, I think it can be ambitious in places. It's also very flat in places. And I think the documentary stuff, the handheld camera, is so poorly done that you're like, okay, so you have no future as a documentarian. You should just stop right now and knock this on the head. But it shows like someone trying, I think, to find their feet as a director, but it's not always pulled off very well. The camera also is very static. There's not a lot of movement going on. And also, I know we talk about music a lot, and I'm not going to get into the music discussion much, but you've really got to, in the editing bay, you have got to realize when your movie has 4 minutes of saxophone in a row. Like Reality Bites has like a 4-minute stretch at the beginning of the movie where it is nothing but saxophone music. And I wanted to poke my ears out. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ, there's nothing in this movie going on right now, but going from one saxophone song to another. And I think you have to catch that and go like, oh God, this could be grating. There's no movement. Nothing's happening here. I think, I don't think either movie is particularly well directed, but I think it's for different reasons. I think Cameron Crowe tried something and was not very successful. And I think Ben Stiller didn't know what to try and was just throwing things at the wall. And that wasn't always successful. I don't think they're egregious like displays of directorial there's not like people changing outfits or actors, races, heights, hair colors in between shots or anything like that. Nothing crazy, but the cigarettes, when you're going to put cigarettes in a movie, you are creating a continuity nightmare for yourself. And I caught it a couple times where people are smoking very short cigarettes and come back and there's a full cigarette. Also, Reality Bites has more cigarette smoking than any movie from the 70s I've seen. Like, it's ridiculous. For a movie done that, like, in 92, the amount of cigarette smoke is concerning. I was not enthused or I'm underwhelmed. I'm not whelmed. I'm underwhelmed.
Yeah,
Not whelmed.
it's really weird also to see them smoking like in a restaurant and at places that you can't anymore.
In a hospital.
In a hospital.
What the hell?
Well, and she was sitting talking to her dad,
Doctors used to
and the
smoke.
dad smoking, holding the ashtray, and she's like smoking with a bowl of chips in front of her. Like, it was so bizarre.
Yeah. Sorry, of a time.
Hey, they tried to make Memorex a noun because he says the line, do you have to Memorex everything? And I was like, huh, not
Hold
a
on,
thing.
one quick. Now that you mentioned the smoking, when was the last year in a movie someone had physical plane tickets in their hand and used them to like show we're going somewhere or I got these? Reality Bites had that scene, where he has them and he wants to take her to New York. The one that always stuck in my head is Home Alone, where he spills milk all over the
and throws
plane
one of
tickets
them away.
And one gets scooped into the trash. Right. But when was that last time when like holding physical airplane tickets in front of people like that was a thing?
Well,
and how did they get them?
I would flip it even further that he picks them up and uses them, which is baffling.
There's a lot in these two movies. I wish I had, like, when I started, I had been like, all right, these are things that did not age well, like staring at a fax machine, waiting for a job offer.
Oh yeah.
The one I laughed the hardest at was you have to rinse all the food off your dishes. Like that's not a thing anymore. Like you're not supposed to wash the food off your dishes now. Like if you went through this back then and were like, what do you think's not going to be around in 30 years? You're like, well, that dishwasher thing that should still be here, right? Like, nope, that changed too.
How about enormous garage door openers? And a store that specializes in selling garage door openers with a police light
had fancy
in the
ones.
back. What the hell was that about?
Or that valley of vinyl popularity where it's like, oh, I miss records. Like, hold on, girl, it's coming.
It'll be back. It'll be back. Yeah, I just felt like Singles was like this kind of almost disjointed vignette, like series of vignettes. It was like these short little, it felt at times almost unconnected kind of vignettes. And, there were weird periods of time in between things that we didn't really get a sense of. She gets on a boat and goes on a research and she's gone for like a month or something like that. And, I think there are filmmaking techniques that you can use to kind of portray that passage of time. But I didn't feel like that happened. Like she leaves on a boat and then all of a sudden the next scene is her coming back on the boat. And I just didn't, I felt like it was just kind of, it didn't feel connected. It was just a whole bunch of like, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that was to represent how young people felt at the time. Maybe that was actually intentional.
They did show him working. There was one scene where he's at the computer working while she's away. There is the one
and
scene.
He falls back in love with work or whatever. They both fall in love with work instead of each other or whatever. Yeah, but I just felt like a lot of times it just felt really kind of disconnected. And I think it was mentioned before, and I was going to save it for this round because I felt like it was a directorial choice where they talk to the camera in Singles. And it's like, who are they talking to? And you never really get a sense of like, who are they talking to me? The audience? Is this supposed to represent some sort of internal dialogue or something? I didn't understand that, and I didn't feel like it worked, and I felt like it was also inconsistent. And I didn't really like that. I think with Reality Bites, they pulled that off a little bit better by having a character in the movie actually making a documentary. So it kind of explained why they were talking to the camera and that kind of thing. I don't know if I liked that, but I think it felt like it made more sense in Reality Bites. And I felt like that it was Reality Bites was a little bit more connected to like the story made more sense. The editing choices and that kind of thing made more sense. It seemed more linear to me. And if you know me, I'm okay with non-linear. I actually prefer it, but I just felt like it was disjointed in singles. And I don't know, you guys can expound upon this too. I didn't feel like there was anything really spectacular from a cinematography standpoint, shot choices or angles or anything like that. I just felt like they were suitable. They got the job done, but there was nothing really that stood out to me.
I
So, for
I
me,
have to
I thought-
agree.
I thought singles.
Sorry, Tom.
First, so I'll jump on that. I think the cinematography in singles was a lot better, and I think they had Fujimoto was the cinematographer on singles, which is really surprising because he did this coming off Silence of the Lambs, but then he would go on to do, and he did a lot of 80s rom-com stuff, and then he did Silence of the Lambs and did this, and then he kind of elevated his game a bit, and I think he wound up doing eventually Sixth Sense. I think he's won an Oscar for it. But anyway, I felt like the disjointed, chapters, full screen chapter signs and everything was about kind of like how you remember that time in your life. When I look back on my 20s, my memories are these little vignettes of these little significant moments that happened to me. And there are large gaps. And yes, a month does roll by in the blink of an eye because, once you start getting in a routine and you're doing your job, time speeds up and a month flies by really, really fast. But I think that's what I liked about singles is that for me, the directing kind of captured that essence of these kind of blocks of time where stuff wasn't really happening. And, there's just a handful of things that I remember from that. And that's how I would remember those times. I thought Ben Stiller's direction in Reality Bites was pretty good, but there's the scene where they kind of confront each other when she comes out in the doily dress, which my wife has a doily dress, by the way. And but she comes out in the doily dress and they're both on opposite sides of the screen and she's standing in the middle and they're kind of facing off against each other. I thought that was a little heavy-handed because I like, oh, that's kind of cool directing choice. I'm like, oh, that's a little bit too on the nose, I thought, with her standing between the two of them with her back to the camera. And then the last thing I'll mention, since it's directing, we have to mention Tim Burton. So I thought he was really, it was like the one note and it was a really brief cameo. And I know that he didn't have a hand in it, but I thought Debbie's dating video was fantastic. It was really good. Like
Her
when
flying.
I was a kid, when I watched this originally, I was like, God, what a horrible dating video. But then I watch it now and I go, that's amazing. I absolutely loved it. So give me your number.
She flies.
Yeah, it's come around to where that would be a TikTok dating video.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
It's come back around.
What I thought.
Tim Burton hanging out in the back there looking like Robert Smith already got fat from The Cure.
Yeah.
Really, I was like, who is that guy back there? And then looked it up later. I was like, oh, it's Tim Burton. Okay.
What I thought was fun about the dating was that not only did she do the video, but they sent her a response with guys in it, and then at the end they do the little her picture and then a question mark.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I will say about directing is, especially with Reality Bites, it definitely felt like Ben Stiller was still trying to find his groove. Like it felt like his very first movie. It felt like his very first directorial, and he just was kind of getting his feet wet. Again, nothing that really just went, whoa, blew me out of the water. Singles, I just, the fourth wall thing, even like they did inner thoughts towards the audience, I thought was interesting. And then at the very end, I noticed as they did the huge pull out shot and they show the city and you hear all the different thoughts happening from the singles building, I thought was interesting. So I think I understand your perspective, Tom, and where you're coming from. I don't remember my 20s at all. Maybe that's a good thing. But I guess I don't know. It just, something just felt disjointed to where I kind of got pulled out of it. And I'm not a big title card people. It's weird. Yeah, I don't know. The fourth wall breaking without actually breaking, knowing why or how, was just a different choice for the director to do. And maybe it was the writer that decided. I don't know. It was just weird.
My feeling is we kind of felt this kind of rush of cameras becoming more and more a part of our lives in the 90s. And you could feel the inertia pulling us to where we are now, where everything everywhere is filmed all the time, and that everyone has a camera in their pocket and it's constantly going on. I felt like Ben Stiller and Cameron Crowe they could feel it coming. They're like, this is going to be important. People are going to be filming lots of things and speaking to cameras and stuff like that. And I don't think they really could. I realized that reality TV and TikTok, that's exactly where we were headed, but we were headed somewhere. And so when I see them doing the fourth wall breaks, or I see them using, her video camera to tell these personal stories, I feel like that's just an acknowledgement to that change that was coming, but we didn't really know what it was. And looking back on it, it was fucking horrible, and it was a really bad right turn. I wish we could go back and undo it. But so to me, I appreciate both of the things, her video camera stuff in Reality Bites, and then his speaking to the camera thing, because I just think it represents this uncertainty, but acknowledgement that this foundational shift was coming to young people and media. And I think that's what I love about it, is like to have that awareness. Because at the time I was like, yeah, I've seen more cameras. Let's go play Nintendo.
And I guess I look at it as, even with the way that they portrayed her documentary, and even the little clip where they showed like the stylistic guys, it seems like they were predicting, MTV going into Real Worlds and Road Rules type montage type reality TV. I mean, like, it had that feel. And so maybe did they give that idea out?
You have to look at the timeline there to see who.
Actually, it's funny you brought that up, because I believe in the trivia that I read, it was Reality Bites was originally going to be called The Real World. And they couldn't do it because MTV had started
the Real World?
Yes.
Interesting.
If I remember correctly.
They were on season 3 by the time Reality Bites came out.
Okay, then maybe it was Singles. I know it was one of them. I know it was in the trivia that I read.
Singles would have been before Reality Bites, so that would make more sense.
Yes.
But either one, they still had that feel to them. So it's an interesting perspective, I guess, and prediction that they made without knowing it. So does that mean that life imitates art, or art is imitating life?
I don't know. You can call the. That's a stretch. It's a wide net. I don't use it.
You think it's reality? Oh, you've been fooled, Kyle.
All right, let's put it to a vote, Kyle.
What is this category?
Director.
Oh. Yeah, Reality Bites. Cameron Crowe fucking beefed it.
Andrew.
Reality Bites.
Tom.
Singles.
Oh, good job, bro. Yeah, got a second one in there.
When you make those Danny Boyle jokes, you're undermining the whatever. Fuck off.
The integrity. That's the voting.
Integrity of Cinespec.
We have integrity. You guys let me be the host.
Wait.
Gabe.
I think both of these directors have really grown into to be really great directors. But between these two, I think Ben Stiller did a better job with Reality Bites.
All right. Warner Brothers attempted to turn Singles into a television series, but Cameron Crowe turned it down. Sometime later, Crowe saw the news on The Hollywood Reporter that his film Singles would become a TV show from David Crane and Marta Kaufman, the people who ended up doing Friends. Crowe called his lawyer and tried to stop this, but NBC went ahead with the idea anyway, incorporating many of the elements of that proposed series into Friends. Crow told Rolling Stone in 2017 that his mother still says, quote, "You really screwed up on Friends. All you had to do was say yes. You would be living in a castle right now," end quote.
Jeez.
And Crow said, quote, "I don't need to live in a castle. I'm happy I made the choices I made. But in my mind, at least you can partially draw a line from the genesis of Friends to our little Seattle film," end quote.
That's what I thought. Them all living in that apartment with the fountain in the middle.
Mhm.
Boy, we nailed
Yep.
it. We nailed
Yeah.
it.
I didn't even read the trivia to this time.
The producers saw the pilot episode for the Ben Stiller show in 1992 and approached Ben Stiller to direct Reality Bites, but not act in it. He signed on to direct in 1992 and worked with Helen Childress for 9 to 10 months developing the script. Initially, Childress, working with executive producer Stacy Shear, had figured out the characters of Lelania, Pierce, and Troy Dyer, but could not come up with a credible character to complete the love triangle. Stiller suggested that he could play that third person. As a result, the Michael character changed from a 35-year-old advertising executive trying to market Japanese candy bars in America to a television executive in his 20s. They also changed the structure of this movie. Originally, Vicky Minor, Sammy Gray, and Troy Dyer had more fleshed out storylines, but Stiller felt that he could not tell them fully and decided to focus on the relationship between Lelania and Troy.
Boy, we nailed both of those.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
When you guys were bringing them up, I'm like, oh, this is going to pay off.
Full circle, and we're not even
Full
done.
circle. All right. Fourth and final round overall.
I'm not sure there's much else that can be said about these movies. We've kind of just gone over and we've talked about the jokes and the acting, but one big thing I would say probably defines both of these movies for the impact they had on the generation would be the soundtracks. So that was a very John Hughes moment there, Tom. But both of these soundtracks, I would say, defined the generation more than the actual movie. Like, there were people that had both of these, had one or the other, had them on vinyl, had them on CDs. These were so good, and they're still good today. I mean, they go from Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, they've got Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins, all the way to U2, The Knack, Lisa Loeb. I mean, these are 90s, of all the 90s that you could possibly, if you ever want to just say, what was the sound of the 90s? You could pick either one of these soundtracks up, and you could play them, and they describe 100% the feel and the vibe that was going on during the 90s and growing up in the 90s. And I would say that they're probably some of the most popular soundtracks to these movies, maybe ever. I don't know, because I know that growing up, I've listened to both of these more times than I can probably want to admit, even though I haven't seen the movies as many times as I've listened to the soundtracks, just because the soundtracks are just so good and the music is so great, and that I would say is what really defines a generation is these soundtracks. So I'm going to leave it at that, because I know Tom wants to talk about the music, and he's going to pull out his vinyl. There they are, boys and girls. Look at that.
Oh my goodness. There's a reason you're on a list, Tom. Don't pull that out.
I've got volume 2 of singles too, by the way. It's really good.
Yeah.
All the music that didn't make it in, some alternate cuts. But yeah, the music is amazing. And like you, I've listened to the albums more than I've seen the movie, but you can listen to an album in the car. You're not supposed to watch movies in the car.
As I say, you can now.
Well, speak for yourself.
I said you're not supposed
I'm a good
to.
multitasker.
I didn't say that I would. If I die in a car accident tomorrow, you guys can be like, he said he watched movies in the car. So
I'll pull the clip.
I think singles. I feel like Singles is a better encapsulation because it's about a wider group of friends. Like I said, it's got a bit softer focus on one specific couple, and Reality Bites seems more like a rom-com where it's more focused on the love triangle. So I think that's why I like Singles. I want to talk real quick too about the cities themselves, and that before Singles and the grunge movement, Seattle was just this like rainy city up in the corner of the country, and with grunge and this movie and a couple others, like Seattle took on this whole new life. And to this day, it's still this very colorful, vibrant city. And it's absolutely beautiful with this, Puget Sound and the ocean nearby and the mountains. It's absolutely amazing. On the other side, you have Austin, which has really kind of come into its own character as well with South by Southwest and everything that's happening down there. Austin City Limits, the music and food and movie scene down in Austin is, it's really incredible. I think they're both cities that have attracted young people, and when you attract young people, you get this very colorful, like I said, vibrant life. And I think Seattle is more of a character in Singles than Reality Bites. Reality Bites could almost take place in more cities than Singles in Seattle, but I think that's interesting that the cities kind of just play such an important part in both these movies.
And I would say that when you have the flush of young generation as they move through, and they either grow and they stay in said city, or they move out and new come in, you have such a it's a movement all the time going on, and so there's always change and there's always something radical happening in those areas. And I think Seattle has really, especially with Nirvana and all of the bands that have garage band grunge stuff that has now come, and that that's kind of what they were famous for, but that's what people knew them was, oh well, the grunge band and garage bands, that's where Seattle. And so all of that came out, and they have just built on that, and it's quite astonishing to see now, and then look back to what it was for both of the places. So I think that's fascinating.
I'd never seen either of these movies before, never listened to either of the soundtracks before. This just kind of missed me on the timeline.
Tom has them. It looks like
up.
Yep.
I went through a very brief grunge phase. It wasn't like the defining movement of my youth like it was for some people. I totally get it, though. It is a cultural touchstone that was part of the zeitgeist back then in such a huge way that it changed. I mean, it touched so many parts of media and made a lot of things more acceptable, and gave people, I think, more freedom to express their art in different ways that weren't so polished and maybe so raw. So I think for that, you have to kind of appreciate that time. And also, it did a lot to overhaul the entire identity of a city, and basically made this rainy port town into like a cultural hub in America, which is just crazy. Like, that doesn't happen very often. I mean, America's great exports, jazz, grunge music, pro wrestling, like that's what we gave the world. But it's interesting to see that captured on camera. I was not aware that Singles was done before these bands had hit it big. It seemed like a thing that would have been happening during the grunge movement and maximized like its sort of popularity. I'm thinking now Cameron Crowe should have got into like futures investing or trying to make money predicting what would happen, because he seems to have his finger on that. Tom, you mentioned earlier, I think in the first round, that one of these movies feels like it's happening at the come up of grunge and the other is sort of a response to grunge. I think that Reality Bites feels sort of like a response to Singles in a way, where they looked at it, saw some of the things that they thought didn't work, but also liked it and liked the concept enough and tweaked it, polished it, and did it their way. You can see a causation where if one doesn't happen, maybe the other doesn't happen later on. But it's really crazy to get these peaks at a time that is so unique. You see it in 80s movies based around like greed and the stock market, all these things that were in the news right in there, very much of the time. And there are some movies that are timeless, but watching these movies that are time capsules is interesting because it instantly makes you remember how you felt at that time. For me, it was, laying in diapers, looking at my mobiles. And for you guys, it was riding on the train 40 hours to your senior management jobs, so, it was one of those things. Like, we're always going to have a different memory of this time, but I'm not that much younger than these guys. Tom's got long for such short hands. You got long little fingers.
I think it represented all of us.
Yeah. Okay.
It was 3 middle fingers worth.
No, I remember like grunge sort of really changed the face of MTV too. Like all of a sudden you were seeing Nirvana all the time, and I mean it led to Unplugged, which gave us some great music. And I think Alice in Chains Unplugged is still one of my favorite live performance concerts I've ever seen. So, it's interesting to watch this at the birth of this huge movement. That I don't know what its legacy will be now looking back at it 40, 50 years later. Do kids know about grunge? Like, has it carried on? I don't know, but it was very much a wave that swept across America, like Beanie Babies or the Chia Pet.
So what did Slipknot do for Des Moines?
Yeah.
Slipknot made everyone in Des Moines come up with a story about someone they know from Slipknot.
That's true.
I was trying to.
Oh, I was in high school with a friend that used to.
When
Yeah.
I went to Overland Park, where my company's headquarters are, they asked me a little bit about Iowa, and I said, "Oh, if you ever meet anyone from Iowa, ask them who they know from Slipknot, because everyone from Iowa knows someone from Slipknot somehow."
Yep. 7 Degrees of Slipknot.
Yeah, I actually have a story about working on a movie with a guy from Slipknot, which makes me just as culpable as the rest of them. But I mean, like, everybody, that's our greatest export, right?
Yep.
Other than corn and hogs, it is nine-piece metal axe. That is our legacy. They should be on stamps, honestly. I mean, they've probably earned Iowa millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue. So yeah, put them on a stamp. That's what I say. I want to buy a clown stamp and a stamp with the guy jerking off his nose. The guy hitting the pancake.
Oh, I have plenty of those stamps, Kyle.
Oh, okay. Oh, these are unbranded stamps. This is just a guy with a long. Is this from the movie Roxanne?
You guys know that the stamps already have sticky stuff on them now. You don't have to.
But it's cheaper if you stick it yourself.
Yeah, well, unlike you, Kyle.
It's gonna change the subject.
Yeah.
Come on, Gabe. Get back on track.
Unlike you, Kyle, I am grunge. I was defined by grunge.
I am of the grunge.
I was grunge incarnate. I had a mullet. I wore
what?
the flannel. I had
my God, I want.
He was born from the grunge.
I can give you pictures. I have a picture I can send you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a mullet. I wore the flannel. I had the ripped jeans and the logger boots, and I was grunge, and I loved Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, all of that stuff. Unlike you, Kyle, that was, I remember it. I remember it vividly, and I wish it had never gone away. And I loved, I think we started out talking about these, these movies, the soundtracks for these movies, and I think for me, Singles is a definitive soundtrack for me. And Mike, you mentioned that you like Chris Cornell's James Bond theme for Casino Royale. No, it's really awesome. It's really cool. But I think one of my favorite Chris Cornell songs of all time comes from Singles, a song called Seasons. And I just think it's a fantastic, beautiful song. And it's one of my favorite Chris Cornell songs of all time. And and it was really kind of fun, and also, like, I don't know, strange and disturbing to see some of these guys in this movie, to see Chris Cornell and to see Lane Staley and that kind of thing, because they're gone now. And so it's like
Right.
so many. It's one of the things, the grunge era is gone, but so many of the people who were so important to that grunge era are also gone, and it's really kind of sobering a little bit. But it was enjoyable to go back to that and see, that scene and how it was developing and how people dressed, and to hear that music again. There was a guy, he had a little cameo, and I thought it was really interesting. There was a guy, I think she makes a wrong call. She calls the wrong number or something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy named Tad that answers that, and he was in a group at the time called Tad, and I saw them live one time. And that was the first time I had ever heard of them, but I saw them live, and it was probably, I don't know who they opened for. They opened for another band, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's in that. And that guy, I remember when he came out on the stage, this guy is humongous, like huge, like tall, big. He was a huge dude, and he came out and he belted out these songs, and it was really, I went out and bought one of their albums after seeing the show, because I was like, this is awesome. I had never heard these guys before, and they really were raw and pretty cool. So I don't know. Unlike Kyle's experience, this does bring back some things for me. I'm not sure I identify with a lot of the characters, but I identify with the music and the era that Singles came from.
I think I would say that Kyle said actually probably the most poignant thing about the movies and the music that came from these movies, and it's a time capsule.
It really is.
They are perfectly frozen in time, from actors that are no longer with us to styles and the music. Like, these are not timeless movies. These are definitive pieces of time that have been stitched onto our screen, films, DVDs, to show us like this moment in time. And I think that stands for something for these two movies, that they're not just films. They're these generational time capsules. And I think that's kind of surreal in a sense. Like, that's amazing. And I think that was a good way to say it.
I can't really think of another. I can't. I mean, I'm sure if I thought about it a while, other movies that are a product of their time in the way that these are. That's just the snapshot that they were produced at the same. I mean, American Graffiti, but that was produced, decades after the 50s. But to see for them to, to be in the moment, produced by these people, and I don't know. It's pretty special. By the way, I'm gonna go ahead and admit something, that I love this movie, and it just occurred to me that Campbell Scott and Kira Sedgwick are doing The Kiss by the Hotel de Ville on the cover of this movie that I really like. Mm-hmm. This is the kiss from the photo from the movie. They're replicating it in the poster. And I know that everyone else probably caught onto that. I've been looking at this for 30 years, and I'm going, oh, fuck, that's the kiss from the fucking French photo.
Yeah,
so anyway.
That they showed several times, yes.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't know that was on the cover.
Oh, good. I'm not the only one. But yeah, I just saw that, and I'm like, that's the fucking kiss. Anyway.
Long middle fingers, and eventually gets around that track. Well, I was just going to say, with what Andrew and, well, I mean, kind of what all of you have said is, man, the 90s was like a music awakening for me. Like, I was raised on country music at the time, like the 80s country going clear back to the 50s, and also Rat Pack, and that was going into the 90s. I mean, my junior year of high school, I was on the radio, and the first time that I heard Led Zeppelin was the time that it was the first song we played when we were on the radio. I'm like, who is this? Like, Led Zeppelin? I'm like, oh my God. So
are they new?
What? How'd it fly? So grunge was hitting at the same time, and I did like those songs, but man, I went back. That was kind of my awakening to the classic rock. Like I went absolutely crazy buying CDs of, Zeppelin, Floyd, The Who, and then right beside them would be Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, my favorite, Stone Temple Pilots. But it was crazy. And then watching these movies again, just it was almost like you just see me staring off into space and having these 90s flashbacks while Creedence played through the air. I mean, it was just weird what it unlocked watching both of these films. So with my rant over, let's put it to a vote.
Hold on. I do want to say, Gabe, you're not the only one that perhaps I also at one point had a mohawk and they used Elmer's glue to make sure that it stayed up and was tall and hard. So
yeah, I never had a mohawk.
Really?
We used Elmer's glue for other reasons.
No. We used Elmer's glue in our hair to make sure that the spike would stay up as high as possible and it wouldn't waver. Oh yeah, because then it washed out afterwards.
Gabe, you send out that mullet pic. It's going on our Facebook page.
You already did, and oh my God, be still my panties.
Hold on, this is like a holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Yeah, there's me rocking my. I'm rocking my pawn shop guitar.
Oh my God!
I don't even know what kind of sunglasses they are. They're probably from a gas station.
Look at that's like a senior picture.
Can you see the rips in my jeans?
Oh my gosh, that's like a senior picture.
I used Google Lens on this, and it came up in Webster's dictionary under the word orgasm.
Too bad. I was in college. That was in my college dorm room, and too bad the college girls didn't think the same thing.
Think the grunge.
Think the same thing. Unfortunately,
wow.
they were naive. They were
just real quick with this.
Evian is naive.
I suggest you regrow that mullet and you start a band, our own grunge band called Skanky Mass.
Skanky what?
Mass.
Okay.
It'll be the Cinesmack band.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll be the front man.
The only part of the mullet I could grow is probably be in the back, so it would be.
That's the important part.
That's the party in the back part.
That is the mullet, I guess. Yeah.
Can I be the guy from the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones that just dances?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just
100%.
want to be the ska guy. Yeah.
All right. Let's put it to a vote, gentlemen. Andrew.
I'm gonna go with Reality Bites.
All right. Tom.
Singles.
Gabe.
I'm gonna confound Tom with my nonsensical voting, and I'm gonna go with Singles, largely because of the soundtrack in this category.
All right. And Kyle.
Reality Bites.
We are Skanky Mass. Chris Cornell of Soundgarden saw a list of Citizen Dick song titles, all completely made up, which would appear briefly in the film, and decided to pen songs to match each title. One of those songs, Seasons, appears on the film soundtrack. Another, Spoon Man, was later recorded by Soundgarden. It became a hit in 1994 and can be heard in a rough version, perhaps a demo, in the film when an unseen person is posting Citizen Dick flyers.
Yeah, I heard it.
My Spotify DJ keeps going back to that one. Whereas like Soundgarden has other songs, man. Come on.
Yeah. That's maybe not one of my favorite Soundgarden songs. It's a very popular one. It's one I like, but when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, that's Spoon Man. But it sounded rough. Yeah. It sounded a little,
The main reason that Reality Bites got the nod from the Knack to use My Sharona for its soundtrack, beating out Pulp Fiction, is because Ben Stiller explained the fun nature of the sequence, the friends dancing together in a mini mart. where the song would be used, and the band liked that idea more than the graphic and violent scene Quentin Tarantino wanted to use the song for in his film.
Oh, I don't want to stretch this on, but I just noticed you'd have to play the opening of Reality Bites. You'd have to mute the soundtrack now because it starts with Gary Glitter.
Oh,
and nobody plays that song anymore. It starts with Rock and Roll Part 1. And I was telling Heather, like, oh, you can't play this song anymore. And she's like, why? And then I had to explain during the credits of the movie. And she's like, oh, yeah. I was like, there's a reason you don't hear it in arenas anymore. And it was crazy when the Joker did it.
Yep.
But yeah, ruin that. What a fucking asshole. Ruin that song.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the other stuff. The other stuff was bad too, but ruin that song.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our recommendations for this month. We'll start it off with Tom.
So one of the filmmakers that we talked about tonight is having a really good year, and he's the darling of streaming services, especially Apple TV, and that would be Ben Stiller, because I am recommending his TV show Severance, which I can't believe we've never recommended on the show before, but it doesn't look like we have. Severance is a TV show about a company who puts implants in their employees so that when they walk in the door for their job, they forget about the outside world and they're there on their job. And then when they go upstairs and leave for the day, they forget about their job and they're basically living two separate lives and are living a severed life where they don't really know the work person, what they call the innie, and the person, the outie, the person that's out in the real world. And then things start to fall apart as they tend to do in situations like this. It's a thriller. It's a puzzle. It's very funny in parts. And so, just check it out. Adam Scott is really great in it. And Ben Stiller directed most of the first season and then the season 2 premiere that we just had last week. So check out Severance on Apple TV.
I loved that show. I watched it last year when I was recouping from the knee surgery. And I feel like before I start season 2, I need to go back and rewatch season 1 again, just so I remember what happens.
So I thought so too. I thought so too. And time was ticking real quick and the premiere was coming. And so I panicked and I watched a recap that Screen Crush did on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. 15 minutes, I was completely caught up. And it's funny because I actually kind of went through a severed moment where I'm like, I don't remember anything about this show at all. There's no way. And then I watched the Screen Crush thing and everything clicked in my brain. I went, oh yeah, I do like that show. I can't wait to watch more. So I would recommend the Screen Crush thing as well. Don't put that on the list, but I just.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you, Tom. Gabe?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I know we like to try to recommend movies that are related to what we've watched in some way or another, genre or actors or directors or whatever. But I finally got to watch The Wild Robot the other day on Peacock. It came out on Peacock and I'm like, I'm going to watch it. And it's nominated for an Oscar. And I really enjoyed it. It's really a nice film. One of the things that I noticed about it was that it was very fast-paced. There are no pacing problems with this. It's almost too fast. I'm like, whoa, slow down. What is happening? This stuff is happening too fast. And it's probably because I'm an old person and not a young person who can digest this stuff so quickly. But the pacing is really very quick. But it's a very beautiful film. It's a heartwarming film. The acting performances are very good. The animation is a little bit unique from what we're used to seeing, from say like Pixar films or others. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. So I would definitely recommend The Wild Robot.
Great recommendation.
Yeah, excellent choice.
Took the kiddo to see that in the theater. It was fantastic.
It's really well done.
It came out a few weeks after we took our oldest to college for his freshman year, and it wrecked us.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to, and I thought I could maybe avoid it, but I was bawling at the end. Thankfully, I was downstairs, basically alone, just with one of my dogs.
The best
You
way
know.
to cry.
Holding
Yeah, I know.
Best way to
Alone.
cry, right?
Good, that's
Alone in the
right,
basement.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
alone
basement.
in the basement holding your dog.
Yes.
Maybe the furnace will kick on and they won't hear.
But it was really good. A lot of good performances, and just
Yes.
like seriously, the pacing. Like you could never argue that they wasted any time
Correct.
in that movie. It was just like wham in your face immediately from the beginning. Yeah, this is good.
All right, Kyle.
Well, I'm going to go against Gabe here, and I'm going to recommend something tangentially related to these movies. I talked quite a bit about hating sort of the stuffy, up your own ass, chaptered movies. So I'm going to go ahead and recommend one that defined my movie viewing experience for many years, and that is a movie I can't believe I've never recommended before, and that is Clerks from 1994. It was my introduction to Kevin Smith. It was also the movie that made me think I could make a movie. So if there was no Clerks, I would have never gotten into any sort of filmmaking or done any of those 7-Elevens or 48 Hours or anything of that nature. So in that way, it is hugely influential to me. But I also realize the irony of panning these movies for that and then recommending and loving Clerks because they have so much in common. But I feel it's sort of like it's a sentimental thing, and it's just, I don't know if it holds up anymore, but Clerks was my jam for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Clerks still holds up.
It does.
And I immediately while watching these, not only was I having flashbacks, but I just kept thinking, oh man, Clerks, and just thought of all the Kevin Smith movies that I grew. Yeah. Yep. Mallrats. Slacker. Yeah.
When you said you were going to recommend one that had chapters, I thought you might go with Pulp Fiction. Because it kind of has chapters in it too, and I think it works. It works for that one.
Yes,
and also nonlinear. Andrew.
I'm going to actually go with one that I'm actually surprised hasn't been recommended, maybe, but is also in the same time period. Actually, only a year after Reality Bites, has Liv Tyler in it. Robin Tooney, Ethan Embry, Renee Zellweger is also in it. And it's a small little coming of age, very much a time capsule style, music, all of those things directly in this movie. And it's 24 hours in a record store, and that's Empire Records. So it's another one of these that you can watch, and it brings you right back to where you were when you saw the movie. The soundtrack is fantastic. I've listened to this soundtrack probably more than I've seen the movie too. It's fantastic, and it fills right into where we are with these other two movies. So Empire Records, highly recommended.
Oh man, Andrew, you almost took my pick.
Oh no!
Almost. I had it up and I changed it halfway through.
I had to go look because I was like, someone had to have recommended it.
So this will just segue right into mine, because I was looking at Empire Records and I'm like, well, I remember seeing Singles, Reality Bites, Empire Records, all like late 90s. Like there, for some reason, I just went on this kick. And then I saw the one that is related to Kyle's pick. And that is a film that has Shannon Doherty, Jeremy London, Jason Lee, Ben Affleck, Jason Mewes, and Kevin Smith.
Yep.
And that's Mallrats. Like, for me, all four of those movies right there are all one movie in my memory, because I pretty much watched them back to back to back. And for me, Mallrats still might be my favorite Kevin Smith movie. I love it, and you watch it and you kind of miss those days of hanging out in the mall when you could just go hang out in the mall.
That kid is on the escalator again.
Yes, exactly. But I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably seen it. But if you haven't, you need to watch it. You need to watch all the recommendations. But I'd be surprised if you have not seen Mallrats.
It's not a schooner. It's a sailboat.
Schooner is a sailboat, stupid head.
You know what?
All right.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to poke the monkey.
Hey, you want to hear something crazy before you poke the monkey?
Yeah.
I've never seen Mallrats.
What?
Really?
So I left for college. I left for college when Mallrats came out, and I didn't get to it, and that was 30 years ago. And I like Kevin Smith movies. It's like this little gap. And
This might be a time where we record another.
No. I will watch it by myself because I can't watch it for the first time with you yokels like fucking Rocky Horror Picture.
Oh yeah, you don't want to miss any important plot points in Mallrats.
Yeah, right.
No, it's not that.
The narrative.
Like, I can't even hear it because you guys are.
Fly.
You guys
I mean,
perform it for me.
I mean, Mallrats. The only bad thing is like Mike said, that there's not a lot of like that mall ratting that goes on anymore. So
Right.
You know, I went to the mall on a Friday night not too long ago, and there were a ton of fucking kids there just hanging around.
Really?
They just hang around.
Is it coming back? Is it coming back?
I don't know.
No.
No.
I don't know what's happening.
I don't think so.
But at Jordan Creek,
there's also the old people who walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when we go to
Catch Gabe
Merle.
out there walking.
Yeah,
I'm out there.
Holding
I'm
his
doing
dog
laps.
crying.
I'm doing laps in Merle Hay. And hey,
Crying as he's
there used to be stores in here.
Used to be. I remember the Grade Pretzel Factory. Do you kids remember that? Pepperidge Farm
I used
remembers.
to get a
There
Cinnabon.
used to be a factory, and all they made were cookies.
You kids ever heard of a Sbarro?
They used to hand out free
Orange
pieces of
juice.
sausage and cheese right there.
You never had garlic knots till you had them in tinfoil.
There used to
Another
be a
lap?
store
Let's go.
called Sears. You could buy anything you ever wanted there.
Yeah. And you know, with every lap, we tell those same stories
Yes.
because we forget.
Yeah, by the time you start.
But by the time you get around, you forget you said that. And
You have a
then,
real memento moment. You look around and
Yeah.
forget what's
Yeah.
going on.
I got a tattoo. Yeah, this used to be a
No,
Sears.
It just
no.
says, remember Orange Julius?
Sears, and then you would go by Montgomery
was over
Wards, and then Montgomery Wards.
If you think about it, an escalator's never really out of order. It just becomes stairs. Sorry for the convenience. God,
I miss that show too.
Yep.
You'll make a good old person, Kyle.
What do you mean, strange voice coming from my light up box? Hello?
I meant to say you make a great old.
Thank you. Is this my granddaughter?
Poking the monkey.
Off the rails.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is Reality Bites.
12-4.
That's not how close I thought it was going to be.
Same here. All right. Here we go, fellas. Please leave us a review on whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. If you like us, tell your friends. If you hate us, tell your enemies. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, or search Cinesmack. If you want to listen to an unedited version of the show, you can catch us live on Twitch whenever we record an episode. We also now have a YouTube channel where you can watch the recorded Twitch videos. And thanks to Andrew for recording those. In March, we celebrate March Madness with a slobber knocker of a match. It's Chopping Mall versus Witch Trap. For Tom, Kyle, Gabe, Andrew, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
Non, je crois que c'est pas encore.